We call them the maestro, the orchestrators, the engine. Honestly, any football team can't really function without their midfield, and thus we're here to celebrate 5 of the very best from this past season in the JPL. Welcome back to JAMPL FAN, and we are here for another award. This time it's for the midfielder of the season, and we got 5 nominees here to get through. So without wasting any people's time, let us start with our first nominee. That'll be Dinar Thomas. So this man wears the number 10 on his back, and honestly, he plays just like he deserved it. He had a great season at Jerusalem, and while it was a bit up and down, he came good and came strong towards the very end. A lot of Water's best performances came from the boot of this man controlling all he can do in the midfield. Also, just watching him by the eye test, is one of the best technicians on the ball you can find anywhere in the league. So of course he deserves to be in this top 5. So let's quickly get to his stats. He played absolutely every minute of the season. He played 31 matches, 30 of them as starters, and he only had 2 goals, but unfortunately, as usual, we can't track how many assists he had, which I can tell you is more than 2. So for that reason, we're going to have him as the first nominee for Midfielder of the Year. Alright, moving on to our next nominee, and it's the man they call Conte, Nathan Thomas. And of course, if you're also seen him play, you can easily see why he got that nickname Conte. This one is omnipresent on the field. He's everywhere that can be found. He covers every blade of grass. And if you are opposing midfielder, best be known that once you touch the ball, he'll be nipping at your heels. He's much more than just a workhorse though. He does well in terms of positioning and shielding well of that back line. It is fair to say the stability would have gotten anywhere near the top 4 if it wasn't for all the work rate that Nathan Thomas provides in midfield. He absolutely fit Jerome Waite's running style like a glove, and it is scary to think that if he had played more matches, what he could have done. Alright, so let's go into the stats of Nathan Thomas here. So he clocked 1,275 minutes from 18 matches played, and he had no goals, and again we have no stats and assists. But goals was not his forte. His job was simply to ball recovery, and trust me, is one of the best in the league. So again, Nathan Thomas deserves a spot here in the top 5 and a nominee for Midfielder of the Year. Okay, so let's go to our next nominee, somebody who's more of a technician on the ball, a bit more silky on the ball, and that's the young JAHEIM National Thomas of Arne Guns. JAHEIM absolutely grew into his role as the season got on, and he was one of the better technicians on the ball and better playmakers for Arne Guns. Once you saw Gilbert's team in full flight, best believe JAHEIM was one of those that were pulling all the strings in midfield. Honestly, he was one of the better playmakers this past season, and that's why he's in the top 5. Let's look at his stats real quick here. He clocked 2,264 minutes of action in 31 matches played. So he's another man that played all season and had 27 of them as starters. He had 6 goals in the league, and again, unfortunately, we just have no stats on how many assists he had, but from my recollection, he had over 10 goal contributions. So it was an impressive season for the young national, and it's scary to think how much better he will get with more experience. But for now, he definitely is one of the best midfielders this past season, but we wait to see if he's number 1. Alright, next on our list is partner in crime in that Arne midfield, and that's a Jamon Shepherd of Arne Guns. Now, Jamon is more of a box-to-box compared to Thomas, but he also has great influence on most of Arne Guns' play. It just feels that Arne cannot click whenever he's not in the starting lineup. And while yes, we would have wanted more goals from him, I'll get more into that in terms of the stats, he's definitely an influencer and an orchestrator with the ball in that Arne midfield. I can even safely say that majority of Arne's attacking plays must come through Shepherd. Alright, let's look at his stats real quick here. He had clocked 2,109 minutes of action in 29 matches played. So that's to show again another Arne player that can have good stamina to last a season. He only had 2 goals all year, which funny enough came against his former team in Harborview. And again, I have no record on how many assists he had. Shepherd is the type of player that goes under the radar a bit, especially in that attacking Arne team. Kid you not, is one of the main reasons why they got into that top 4 last season. Okay, so let's go on to our final nominee, and that is the only foreigner on this list, and that's Claudio Ferrero of Mobile United. Ever since the great Pele, you could say that Jamaica is basically 90% half Brazilian, and we always fancy how the Samba Nation play their football. So, of course, when we heard that a number 10 was coming into the league from the land of the king, he would have a lot of pressure. And while I won't say he necessarily matched those lofty heights, Claudio Ferreira had a very good season. He was definitely the linchpin of the Montego Bay United attack, and even a lot of times you could confuse himself as a number 8 or even a number 6, as he would drop deep to collect the ball and start up many of the plays. He was definitely an immense player for Montego Bay, and now he's over Mount Pleasant, and we can't wait to see what he can do in a team like that. But as for last season, he definitely deserved to be in the top 5. In terms of his stats, he had 2,101 minutes of action and played 24 games, so basically only missed out on 2 in the regular season. His play was not enough to drag Mobe into the playoffs, but they came pretty close. He had 4 goals in the entire time, and at least based on recollection, had over 12 goal contributions. So Ferreira is deserving of being the top 5, but is he the number 1 midfielder of the year? We will get to that shortly. Alright, so as I stated before, we're counting down finally to name our number 1. But before we get to that, I have an honourable mention, as usual, as this man deserves some praise for how he played last season. And that would be JAHEIM Rose at Portmore United. The centre midfielder from Ferrero Park was also an immense player from the Sunshine City. He, just like Dinar Thomas, do a lot of the hard groundwork that doesn't necessarily get all the praises, and he was almost everywhere. He was a good shield to that back three and helped Portmore had one of the best defensive record this season. He slightly missed out on my top 5, as I think Thomas did his role a bit better, but kid you not, he was also an important player last season. In his stats, he had 1,945 minutes played. He played 25 matches. He only had 1 goal in return. But his job was mostly to ball recovery and defend that back three, which I think he did superbly. So I have to give credit to Rose. He may not be in my top 5, but he was the next best. Alright, so that's all the nominees out of the way, all the honourable mentions out of the way. Now it's time to finally name who is the midfielder of the year. Alright guys, as usual, drum roll please. And the winner this time is Dinar Thomas. The man named called Indian deserved his number 1 spot, I feel. Yes, the midfield pool this year wasn't necessarily the deepest, but Thomas, I felt, was still a touch above the rest. While you could argue that he wasn't the most consistent player for Walthouse this year, I also feel he was their best player during that stretch of games towards the end of the season that got them into the playoffs. And then when he is in the playoff, he was by far one of the most sparkling diamonds on the field. Even when he was asked to play left wing, he was still a massive influencer and playmaker in that Walthouse midfield. So, big up yourself, Dinar Thomas. You are our JAMPL's first midfielder of the season. But alright guys, that will do it here on this particular award ceremony. Dinar Thomas is the midfielder of the season, and you have joined Shaquan Davis, goalkeeper of the year, and Sule McCullough, defender of the season. So we have 2 awards left, one for the forward and then one for the overall player of the year. So stick around for those. But otherwise, if you're new here, please like, subscribe and share as we look to keep you up on all things in the Jamaican Premier League throughout the entire off-season and into the new season. Otherwise, for Jamaican Premier League content, you're already at the right place. JAMPL FAN. YouTube, big up yourself.